Time moves on, and as it does, the role of gold shifts again, not by changing itself, but by changing where it sits in the human imagination. In earlier ages, gold was close to the hand. It was weighed, touched, hidden in walls, or buried in earth. Its presence was physical, intimate, and direct. Over time, that closeness began to fade. Gold moved farther away, not because it lost meaning, but because human systems grew thicker layers between themselves and anything physical. Records replaced memory. Institutions replaced individuals. Symbols replaced objects. Value began to live more in writing than in matter. Gold did not disappear in this process. It receded. Receding is different from leaving. Gold remained present, but no longer necessary for daily recognition. People trusted marks, ledgers, and promises more easily than metal. These systems worked well for long periods. They allowed scale. They allowed coordination. They allowed complexity. Gold watched from a distance. This distance changed how gold functioned psychologically. When something is no longer used directly, it stops being judged by convenience. It is judged by endurance. Gold was inconvenient, heavy, slow, difficult to move in large amounts. These qualities mattered less when it was not used daily. What mattered instead was that it did not vanish. As abstraction increased, the gap between representation and reality widened. Most of the time, this gap caused no trouble. Systems operated smoothly. Confidence reinforced itself. But confidence is sensitive to continuity. It depends not only on performance, but on expectation that performance will continue. Gold did not ensure continuity. It reminded people that continuity could end. This reminder was not explicit. It was implicit, resting quietly in the background. When systems function well, reminders of fragility feel unnecessary. They are often ignored. Gold was easy to ignore during stability. Ignoring gold did not weaken it. It allowed it to wait. Waiting is easier when nothing is demanded. As generations passed, gold became something many people knew about without ever seeing. It existed as an idea anchored to something physical, even if the physical object remained unseen. This separation created a strange duality. Gold was both distant and familiar. People trusted that it existed somewhere, held by someone, counted by someone. This trust did not require verification most of the time. It lived as an assumption. Assumptions are powerful. They allow systems to function without constant confirmation. Gold's role shifted toward being an assumed backstop, even when it was not explicitly referenced. This backstop role did not require activation to be effective. It shaped behavior simply by existing as a possibility. Possibility changes perception. When people believe there is something beneath the system, they behave differently within it. They extend trust more easily. They tolerate abstraction longer. They accept complexity with less anxiety. Gold did not promise rescue. It offered reference. Reference does not intervene. It orients. As abstraction deepened, orientation became more valuable. Without orientation, speed becomes dangerous. Fast systems amplify errors as efficiently as successes. When something moves quickly, small misjudgments can grow unnoticed until they are too large to manage. Gold did not prevent this amplification. It allowed people eventually to notice it. Over very long spans, this noticing shaped historical memory. Societies remembered that abstraction could go too far. They remembered that something physical had once anchored value. They did not always remember the details. They remembered the pattern. Patterns matter more than specifics in long-term behavior. Gold embodied a pattern of return. When complexity overwhelmed trust, people returned to simpler references. When symbols felt detached, substance regained attention. Gold became a symbol of substance without needing to act symbolically. This paradox defined its later role. Gold was no longer the center of exchange. It became the edge of reassurance. Edges are where systems are tested. At the edge, clarity matters more than convenience. Gold offered clarity, not clarity of purpose or policy, clarity of existence. It existed. That fact alone carried weight. As centuries continued, gold's role became increasingly temporal rather than transactional. It was no longer about moving value through space, but about carrying value through time. Time is more difficult to manage than distance. Distance can be crossed. Time cannot. Gold crossed time by not changing. It did not age. It did not decay. It did not forget. Human systems forget. Records are lost. Languages evolve. Meanings shift. Gold remained legible without translation. This legibility made it suitable as a bridge between eras that could not speak to one another directly. A future generation did not need to understand the system that produced the gold. They needed only to recognize the metal. Recognition was enough. As systems layered complexity upon complexity, gold's simplicity became increasingly rare. Simple things are often dismissed as primitive. Over long spans, simplicity can be an advantage. Simple things break less. Gold did not break. It bent, it melted, it reshaped, but it remained. This resilience without rigidity allowed it to persist in changing contexts. Rigidity fractures. Gold flowed without dissolving. As human systems experimented with faster forms of coordination, gold's slowness became more pronounced. It could not be adjusted quickly. It could not be multiplied instantly. It could not be redefined without efforts. These limitations made gold unsuitable for certain roles. They also protected it from excess. Gold could not be stretched thin. It resisted inflation of meaning because its meaning was tied to weight. Weight does not inflate. It remains constant. This constancy mattered more as representations grew lighter and more abstract. People did not always notice the difference immediately. Differences accumulate. Gold accumulated difference quietly. It became the silent comparison point against which expansion could eventually be felt. Not judged. Felt. Feeling precedes understanding. People often sensed imbalance before they could explain it. Gold gave form to that sense without speaking. As this episode opens the next phase of the story, gold stands further from daily life than ever before. Yet its presence is deeper. It is no longer handled often, but it is remembered. No longer central, but foundational. No longer visible, but assumed. It has moved from the marketplace to the margins of thought, where long-term expectations are formed. From there, it continues to do what it has always done. It waits, not for collapse, not for revival, but for the moment when speed exhausts itself, when abstraction stretches thin, and when something unchanged becomes noticeable again. That moment does not belong to any single era. It recurs. And when it does, gold does not need to arrive. It is already there. Time continues, and with it, the distance between human intention and human outcome grows wider. As systems become more capable, they also become more fragile in unfamiliar ways. Fragility does not always appear as weakness. Often it appears as confidence stretched too far. Gold remains outside this stretch. It does not participate in confidence. It does not benefit from it. It does not collapse with it. As abstraction deepens, people become skilled at managing symbols. Numbers move quickly. Claims circulate. Promises overlap. Entire structures operate without touching anything physical for long periods. This is not failure. It is efficiency. Efficiency allows scale. Scale allows coordination. Coordination allows complexity. Gold does not compete with complexity. It waits beneath it. Waiting beneath something is different from opposing it. Gold does not resist abstraction. It allows abstraction to exist without severing all connection to substance. This allowance matters more than direct use. As systems grow, people rely increasingly on trust that others will continue to recognize what they recognize. This trust is often invisible. It is built into behavior. Gold contributes to this trust indirectly. It sits at the edge of awareness, reminding systems that recognition once depended on something physical, finite, and unchanged. This reminder does not interrupt daily activity. It influences expectation. Expectation shapes tolerance. When people believe there is something beneath the system, they tolerate greater complexity within it. They accept representations because they assume representation is anchored somewhere. Gold has served as that somewhere, even when unseen. This role is subtle. It does not require gold to be exchanged. It requires gold to be conceivable. Conceivability is enough. People act differently when they believe limits exist, even if those limits are not actively enforced. Gold embodies limit without enforcing it. This embodiment does not instruct behavior. It frames it. Frames shape perception without dictating action. Gold framed value as something that could not expand infinitely without losing connection to reality. This framing did not prevent expansion. It allowed recognition of excess after the fact. Recognition after the fact is often how human learning occurs. Gold became part of that learning process. As centuries progressed, gold's role became less about economy and more about psychology. Not individual psychology, but collective perception. It influenced how societies understood permanence. Most human creations are temporary. Buildings fall, laws change, languages evolve, even customs dissolve. Gold did not dissolve. This persistence gave it a unique position in collective memory. It became associated not with success, but with survival. Survival is quieter than success. Success demands acknowledgement. Survival only requires continuation. Gold survived many things that were once considered permanent. That survival carried weight. Not immediately, gradually. Over long spans, people learned that things believed to be solid could disappear, and that something seemingly inert could remain. This inversion reshaped intuition. Intuition is not taught. It is formed by repeated experience. Gold formed intuition about endurance. It suggested that endurance does not always look impressive. It does not always expand. It often waits. As systems became faster, this waiting became more pronounced by contrast. Speed creates noise. Noise obscures slow signals. Gold's signal was slow. It was easy to ignore. Ignoring it did not diminish it. It allowed it to remain unchanged. When systems are designed for speed, they often struggle with memory. They move forward efficiently, but they do not carry history well. Gold carried history without narration. A piece of gold did not tell its story, but its existence implied one. Implication is enough to anchor memory. Memory anchored in objects lasts longer than memory anchored in explanation. Explanations require transmission. Objects require recognition. Gold required recognition. Recognition survived disruption. As time continued, gold's role as a temporal bridge became more pronounced. It connected not just generations, but eras. An era ends when its assumptions no longer hold. Gold existed beyond assumptions. It did not assume continuity. It did not assume stability. It did not assume growth. It remained regardless. This non-assumptive nature allowed gold to exist across discontinuity without contradiction. New eras could adopt it without inheriting the beliefs of old ones. They did not need to agree with the past to recognize gold. They needed only to recognize weight. Weight does not argue. As this pattern repeated, gold became less a part of systems and more a boundary condition. Boundary conditions define what is possible without participating in what happens within. Gold defined possibility. It marked what could be carried forward when systems reset. This marking did not require intention. It emerged through behavior. People preserved gold because it had been preserved before. This circularity sustained itself. Circular systems endure when they align with human habit. Gold aligned with habit. Habit is not logical. It is practical. People kept what had lasted. Gold had lasted. As generations passed, this habit became normalized. Normalization does not excite. It stabilizes. Gold stabilized expectations without demanding attention. This stabilization did not stop innovation. It allowed innovation to occur without severing all ties to continuity. Innovation without continuity is disruptive. Continuity without innovation is stagnant. Gold sat between these forces, not balancing them actively, but existing where both could acknowledge it. As human systems continued to evolve, gold did not need to evolve with them. It remained legible. Legibility across time is rare. Most things require translation. Gold did not. This lack of translation requirement made it accessible across cultures and eras without modification. Accessibility without adaptation is unusual. Gold achieved it by being simple. Simple does not mean easy. Simple means consistent. Consistency across time is the deepest form of reliability. Gold's reliability did not come from performance. It came from persistence. As this episode continues, gold stands further removed from daily exchange, yet more deeply embedded in long-term perception. It is no longer the object of attention. It is the condition beneath attention. No longer discussed, assumed, no longer central, foundational. And in that foundational quiet, gold continues to do what it has always done. It remains, not reacting, not directing, not intervening, simply present, waiting. Time continues, and with it, human systems continue to layer themselves upon earlier foundations. Each layer promises improvement, greater reach, greater speed, greater coordination. These promises are often fulfilled, at least for a time. Gold does not participate in promises. It does not project forward. It remains where projection ends. As systems mature, they begin to rely less on what is tangible and more on what is assumed. Assumptions become infrastructure. They are rarely examined because examination would slow movement. Gold does not slow movement directly. It exists as a reminder that movement has limits. Limits are not barriers. They are edges. Edges define shape. Without edges, form dissolves. Gold defined an edge to value without enforcing it. This edge was not fixed in policy or law. It existed in memory and habit. People remembered that value once rested on something that could not be multiplied by decree or imagination. They did not always remember why. They remembered that it had mattered. Memory of importance is often more durable than memory of cause. Gold lived inside that memory. As representation expanded, value became easier to create, easier to move, easier to divide. These changes allowed societies to organize at scales previously impossible. Gold did not oppose this expansion. It remained separate from it. Separation allowed comparison. Comparison allowed awareness. Awareness does not stop excess. It allows recognition of it. Gold did not sound alarms. It marked a distance. Distance between what was claimed and what existed. This marking did not happen daily. It happened gradually, often only visible in hindsight. Hindsight is where gold's role becomes clearer. Looking back, people noticed that gold had remained legible when other references blurred. They noticed that it had not required reinterpretation when systems changed. This noticing shaped future expectations. Expectations shape behavior. Gold shaped expectation without instruction. People expected that something unchanging would remain meaningful even when many things changed. This expectation influenced how they thought about permanence. Permanence is not immortality. It is continuity through change. Gold embodied continuity without narrative. It did not tell people how to live. It did not suggest what to value. It demonstrated what endured. Demonstration is quieter than instruction. It does not require agreement. It accumulates through repetition. Gold accumulated repetition across civilizations that never coordinated. This accumulation gave it a form of authority that did not originate from power. Authority derived from survival is different from authority derived from control. Gold survived without controlling anything. This survival-based authority did not command obedience. It invited recognition. Recognition is voluntary. People recognized gold because it was familiar, not because it was enforced. Familiarity builds comfort. Comfort reduces fear. Fear often drives instability. Gold reduced fear not by eliminating risk, but by existing beyond it. It existed beyond immediate outcomes. When outcomes were uncertain, gold remained certain in form. Form matters. Form gives shape to abstraction. Without form, abstraction becomes untethered. Gold tethered abstraction loosely. Loose tethering allows movement without severance. This balance was not designed. It emerged. Emergence is a slow process. It requires many repetitions across varied conditions. Gold experienced those conditions. Different climates, different beliefs, different social structures. Across these differences, its role converged. Convergence without coordination suggests alignment with something fundamental. Gold aligned with how humans respond to time. Time erodes most things. Gold did not erode. This resistance to time gave it a unique psychological presence. People did not need to fear that gold would change while they were not looking. This absence of surprise matters. Surprise destabilizes trust. Gold rarely surprised. It behaved tomorrow as it had yesterday. This predictability allowed it to fade into the background. Background elements are often the most relied upon. They are noticed only when absent. Gold's absence was rarely complete. It receded, but it remained conceivable. Conceivability sustained trust. As long as people believed gold existed somewhere, its role continued. Belief here is not ideological. It is practical. People acted as if gold would be recognized if needed. That assumption shaped preservation. Preservation ensured availability. Availability reinforced assumption. This loop continued. Loops persist when they do not require maintenance. Gold's loop required only time. Time was plentiful. As human systems continued to experiment, gold remained patient. Patience is not passive resignation. It is endurance without urgency. Gold endured without urgency. It did not need to adapt to remain relevant. Relevance came to it. When systems became too complex to be trusted fully, gold's simplicity stood out. When representations multiplied, gold's singularity mattered. When promises overlapped, gold's silence was reassuring. Silence is not emptiness. It is absence of contradiction. Gold did not contradict itself. It remained consistent. Consistency across time is rare. Most things trade consistency for adaptability. Gold traded adaptability for endurance. That trade suited its role. It did not need to lead. It needed to remain. As this episode continues forward, gold stands as it has stood for centuries. Not central, not peripheral, but beneath. A reference that does not speak. A presence that does not intervene. A substance that carries no instruction, only continuity. Still there, still recognizable, still unchanged. Waiting. Time continues, and with it, the quiet accumulation of habit. Habits are formed without announcement. They emerge from repetition, from what works often enough to be trusted without reflection. Gold became part of this habitual layer of human behavior, not as an object of daily thought, as a background certainty. When people stopped asking what gold was for, its role deepened. Questions invite change. Assumptions preserve continuity. Gold lived inside assumption. This assumption did not say that gold was perfect. It said only that gold would still be there. Still there meant something specific. It meant recognizable. It meant unchanged. It meant available if needed. These meanings did not need explanation. They were absorbed through observation across generations. People noticed that gold did not age with them. It did not grow obsolete. It did not depend on fashion, language, or rule. In a world where almost everything else required upkeep, gold required only storage. Storage is a form of trust. To store something is to believe it will matter later. Gold invited storage by not punishing delay. Most things decay when stored too long. Food spoils, tools rust, textiles rot, records fade. Gold waited. Waiting without decay is rare. This quality alone changed how humans thought about time. It allowed effort to be preserved without urgency. It allowed planning to extend beyond immediate reward. Planning beyond immediacy is difficult for human beings. It requires confidence that the future will recognize the past. Gold provided recognition without negotiation. It did not care who held it or why. It did not demand explanation. It did not need validation. This neutrality allowed it to pass through many hands without inheriting conflict. Conflict often attaches to stories. Gold carried no story. Its lack of story made it adaptable without changing. Different cultures could assign different meanings to it without altering the metal itself. Mining shifted. Gold remained. As systems grew larger and more abstract, the distance between effort and outcome increased. People contributed labor to systems they could not fully see or understand. Reward arrived indirectly, often delayed. This distance required trust. Trust stretched across time and complexity. Gold did not create this trust. It reduced anxiety around it. By existing as something outside the system, gold reminded people that not all value depended on continuous participation. One could step away and still preserve something. This possibility mattered. It allowed rest. It allowed withdrawal without loss. Withdrawal is not abandonment. It is pause. Gold allowed pause. Pause is essential in long systems. Without pause, systems exhaust participants. Gold did not force pause. It made pause viable. This subtle influence shaped long-term stability more than dramatic interventions. Gold did not stop cycles. It smoothed transitions between them. As societies continued to layer technology upon technology, the speed of coordination increased. Information traveled faster. Decisions scaled wider. Feedback loops shortened. Gold remained slow. Slowness can feel irrelevant in fast environments. Over long spans, slowness becomes grounding. It prevents total detachment from time. Gold tied value to geological pace rather than human pace. Geological pace does not hurry. It does not respond to demand. It does not accelerate. This indifference placed a quiet boundary on expectation. Expectation that everything could be adjusted quickly. Gold resisted adjustment simply by existing. This resistance was not confrontational. It was passive. Passive resistance is often more durable than active opposition. Gold did not oppose change. It outlasted it. Outlasting change accumulates authority without seeking it. Authority earned through endurance is rarely questioned. Gold earned this authority gradually, not through decree, through survival. Survival across many forms of failure. Political failure, administrative failure, social failure. Gold did not survive because it avoided these failures. It survived because it did not depend on their success. Dependence is fragile. Independence endures. Gold's independence from specific systems allowed it to move between them without contradiction. As one system faded, gold did not need to be redefined for the next. Recognition bridged the gap. Bridges matter most when passage is uncertain. Gold functioned as a bridge not by connecting systems directly, but by remaining legible to both. Legibility across time is rare. Languages change. Symbols shift. Meanings evolve. Gold's meaning remained minimal. Minimal meaning is easier to carry forward. Complex meanings fracture. Simple ones persist. Gold's meaning was simple. It was scarce. It was durable. It was unchanged. These qualities did not depend on interpretation. They were observed. Observation builds confidence slowly. Confidence built slowly lasts longer. Gold's confidence did not spike. It accumulated. As this accumulation continued, gold became less an active participant in human systems and more a condition beneath them. Conditions are not chosen. They are accepted. People did not choose gravity. They adapted to it. Gold approached this level of acceptance in human thought. Not everywhere, not uniformly, but repeatedly enough to matter. When something reaches this stage, it no longer needs reinforcement. It survives neglect. Gold survived neglect. Neglect did not weaken it. It preserved it. When attention moved elsewhere, gold waited. Waiting without deterioration is a form of strength. This strength did not manifest as dominance. It manifested as availability. Availability across time is the deepest form of reliability. Gold remained available. As the story continues forward, gold does not step into the foreground. It does not demand recognition. It does not assert relevance. It stays where it has always been. Beneath movement, beneath explanation, beneath urgency. Quiet, unchanged, present, waiting for the next moment when something that does not change becomes visible again. Time continues, and with it, the quiet work of accumulation. Not accumulation of objects, but accumulation of experience. Human societies learn slowly. They test ideas across generations, often without realizing it. What fails is abandoned. What endures is kept, sometimes without knowing why. Gold remained because it endured. It endured not by solving problems, but by remaining usable when problems changed shape. As systems grew more intricate, the number of dependencies increased. Value depended on coordination, on communication, on agreement across distance and time. These dependencies worked well when conditions were stable. Gold did not depend on stability. It existed independently of coordination. This independence gave it a peculiar role. It was never the most efficient option. It was never the most flexible. It was never the most modern. And yet, it was repeatedly the most survivable. Survivability does not attract admiration. It attracts reliance. Reliance forms quietly. People rely on what does not fail often. Gold failed rarely because it did not attempt much. It did not promise growth. It did not promise access. It did not promise transformation. It promised nothing. Promise-free systems fail less dramatically. When a system promises little, disappointment is limited. Gold disappointed no one by design. It remained exactly what it had been. This constancy shaped long-term behavior more than innovation ever could. Innovation changes direction. Constancy provides orientation. Without orientation, direction loses meaning. Gold oriented value around time rather than momentum. Momentum is seductive. It rewards speed and expansion. Time is patient. It rewards endurance. Gold aligned with time. As generations passed, this alignment became part of inherited intuition. People sensed that some things were meant to move quickly and others were meant to stay still. Gold belonged to stillness. Stillness is often misunderstood as lack of purpose. In long systems, stillness is a stabilizing force. It absorbs shocks without reacting. Gold absorbed shocks simply by not changing. When disruption occurred, gold did not amplify it. It did not respond. It remained. This non-response reduced cascading effects. Many systems fail not because of initial disruption, but because of reactions to disruption. Gold did not react. This quality made it a reliable counterweight in moments of uncertainty. Not a solution. A reference. Reference points do not act. They allow others to act with awareness. Gold allowed awareness of continuity. Continuity does not prevent change. It provides context for it. Without context, change feels like loss. With context, change feels like transition. Gold provided context by surviving transitions. This survival was not abstract. It was physical. Gold remained visible, touchable, and measurable across centuries. Visibility matters. People trust what they can verify. Verification does not require belief. Gold could be verified with weight and purity. These methods did not change across eras. Consistency of verification reinforced trust. Trust built on verification is durable. It does not depend on authority. It depends on observation. Gold's trust depended on observation. Observation accumulates. Each generation observed that gold had mattered before. They did not need to know when or why. They needed only to know that it had. This knowledge shaped behavior. People protected gold. They passed it forward. They hesitated to discard it. These actions reinforced its survival. Survival reinforced its importance. This loop continued without instruction. Loops that require no management endure longest. Gold's loop required only recognition and time. Time continued. As the world grew more interconnected, gold's universality became more apparent. Different cultures disagreed on many things. They disagreed on governance. They disagreed on belief. They disagreed on hierarchy. They did not disagree on gold's recognizability. Recognition does not require agreement on meaning. It requires familiarity. Gold was familiar everywhere it traveled. This familiarity allowed exchange across difference. Difference often creates friction. Gold reduced friction without resolving difference. It did not unify cultures. It allowed interaction between them. Interaction does not require harmony. It requires a common reference. Gold served as that reference. As centuries passed, new references emerged. Some were faster, some were lighter, some were more adaptable. Many served their purpose well. Gold did not replace them. It remained beneath them. Remaining beneath change is different from resisting it. Gold did not oppose new systems. It waited for them to pass. Waiting does not imply expectation of failure. It implies independence from outcome. Gold did not care whether systems succeeded or failed. It remained usable in either case. This neutrality made it acceptable across ideologies. Ideologies demand loyalty. Gold demanded none. It did not align with any vision of the future. It existed in the present and persisted into the future without intent. Intent is fragile. It must be maintained. Gold had no intent. It required no maintenance. Maintenance burdens systems. Gold removed burden by existing without upkeep. As long as it was protected physically, it did not degrade. This low maintenance allowed it to survive neglect. Neglect often destroys complex systems. Gold survived neglect. Surviving neglect is a form of resilience. Resilience without effort is rare. Gold achieved it through its material properties and the habits built around them. Habits are slow. They change reluctantly. Gold benefited from this reluctance. People were slow to abandon what had lasted. Abandonment requires confidence that alternatives will endure. Gold had already endured. That fact mattered. As this episode continues, gold remains what it has always been. Not an answer, not a direction, not a promise, a reference, a pause, a boundary, a presence that does not speak but does not disappear. Still there, still unchanged, still waiting. And as long as human systems continue to change faster than human nature, something that waits will continue to matter. Time continues, and with it, the quiet accumulation of distance between human intention and human consequence. As systems grow larger, fewer people see the whole of what they depend upon. Participation becomes partial. Understanding becomes distributed. Trust shifts from personal knowledge to structural expectation. Gold does not participate in this diffusion. It remains whole. Wholeness matters when understanding fragments. When no one fully understands a system, confidence rests on belief that the system will continue to function. That belief is often reasonable. Most systems do continue for long periods. Gold does not challenge this belief. It exists beside it. Its presence does not undermine confidence. It tempers it. Temperance is not hesitation. It is proportion. Gold introduces proportion by remaining finite. Finiteness shapes expectation quietly. When something is finite, it encourages consideration. When something feels infinite, it encourages assumption. Gold never felt infinite. It could be counted, weighed, stored, lost. Loss mattered. Loss reminded people that value was not abstract. Loss made absence visible. This visibility grounded perception. In systems where value is largely symbolic, loss can feel unreal until consequences appear. Gold made loss tangible. Tangibility does not prevent risk. It clarifies it. Clarification allows adjustment. Gold allowed adjustment after excess, not correction in advance. Recognition afterward. Recognition afterward is often how societies learn. Gold became part of this learning cycle. As new forms of coordination emerged, value moved faster than ever before. Decisions scaled. Effects multiplied. Distance between cause and effect widened. Gold did not close this distance. It marked it. Marking distance does not shorten it. It allows awareness of it. Awareness reduces surprise. Surprise destabilizes systems more than difficulty. Gold reduced surprise by being predictable. Predictability is often undervalued. It is not exciting. It does not inspire, but it stabilizes. Gold stabilized by being the same tomorrow as it was yesterday. This sameness allowed long-term orientation. Orientation is different from direction. Direction points forward. Orientation situates. Gold situated value in time. It reminded societies, quietly, that time continued beyond immediate cycles. This reminder did not slow innovation. It contextualized it. Context prevents innovation from consuming its own foundations. Without context, novelty replaces continuity entirely. Gold prevented total replacement by remaining. Remaining is a passive act, but passive acts accumulate impact over long spans. Gold's impact accumulated not through change, but through lack of change. This accumulation created a baseline. Baselines allow measurement. Without a baseline, movement cannot be assessed. Gold provided a baseline for value across eras. As representations evolved, gold's baseline did not. This allowed retrospective comparison. People could look back and see difference. Difference is only visible when something remains constant. Gold made difference visible across generations. This visibility did not require consensus. Different cultures interpreted difference differently. Gold did not interpret. It remained. Remaining allowed each culture to draw its own conclusions without altering the reference. This neutrality supported diversity. Gold did not impose uniformity. It allowed variation against a shared constant. Shared constants are rare across human societies. Most constants are cultural. Gold was material. Material constants travel more easily than ideas. Ideas require translation. Gold required recognition. Recognition survived translation. As long as people could see, weigh, and test gold, they could recognize it. This recognition allowed continuity across boundaries that other systems could not cross. Boundaries shift. Gold crossed them quietly, not as a conqueror, as a companion. As centuries passed, gold's presence became more deeply embedded in how people thought about permanence. Permanence does not mean forever. It means long enough to matter. Gold lasted long enough to matter repeatedly. This repetition reinforced expectation. Expectation shaped planning. Planning extended beyond immediate return. Gold allowed people to imagine a future where something of the past would still be legible. Legibility matters. Without legibility, the past dissolves into abstraction. Gold preserved legibility. A future holder did not need to know the story of the past to recognize its residue. Recognition bridged silence. Silence often separates generations. Gold spoke through silence by remaining unchanged. This silent continuity carried forward more than value. It carried restraint. Restraint is not moral discipline. It is structural patience. Gold embodied patience by refusing to respond to urgency. Urgency demands reaction. Gold did not react. This non-reaction created space. Space allowed reconsideration. Reconsideration does not guarantee wisdom. It allows possibility. Gold allowed possibility of pause. Pause is rare in fast systems. Rare things matter when needed. Gold became rare in daily life. That rarity preserved its significance. If gold had remained everywhere, it would have become ordinary. Ordinary things are consumed. Gold remained extraordinary by remaining scarce. Scarcity without artificial restriction creates respect. Respect encourages preservation. Preservation ensures survival. Survival reinforces respect. This loop sustained itself quietly. As this episode continues toward its next movement, gold remains in the same posture it has held for centuries. Not advancing, not retreating, not transforming, remaining available, remaining recognizable, remaining indifferent to pace and ambition, not because it was designed to endure, but because endurance emerged naturally from what it was. And as long as human systems continue to accelerate faster than human memory, something that does not accelerate will continue to matter. Gold remains that something, still present, still unchanged, still waiting. Time continues, and with it, the slow widening of scale. Human effort becomes increasingly collective. Outcomes depend on many hands, many decisions, many layers of coordination. Individual contribution becomes harder to trace. Responsibility becomes diffuse. Gold does not dissolve into diffusion. It remains whole. This wholeness mattered more as systems grew less transparent. When no single person can see the full structure, trust must rest somewhere else. Often it rests on continuity. Gold offered continuity without explanation. It did not reveal how systems worked. It revealed that something had persisted while systems changed. Persistence does not guarantee correctness. It signals durability. Durability influences confidence. Confidence allows participation. Gold contributed to confidence indirectly by existing outside the complexity that required confidence. As systems expanded, people relied increasingly on assurances that were not personally verifiable. They trusted processes they could not observe. They accepted outcomes they could not trace. Gold did not require this leap. It could be verified directly. Verification is grounding. Even when people did not verify gold themselves, they knew verification was possible. Possibility matters. Knowing that something could be checked reduces anxiety, even if it is not checked. Gold carried this possibility. It could be weighed. It could be tested. It could be counted. These acts did not depend on institutional permission. This independence made gold a quiet reference point when trust felt stretched. Not a replacement, a reassurance. As abstraction deepened, reassurance became more valuable than control. Control is difficult in complex systems. Reassurance allows acceptance without mastery. Gold reassured by remaining unchanged. Change creates questions. Unchanging things reduce them. Gold reduced the number of questions one had to ask about value. It did not answer them. It made them unnecessary. Over long spans, this reduction mattered. Cognitive load accumulates. Complex systems demand attention. Gold demanded none. It existed quietly, requiring no interpretation. This quietness conserved attention. Attention is finite. Systems that require constant attention exhaust participants. Gold did not exhaust. It rested. Rest is essential in long processes. Without rest, systems collapse under their own complexity. Gold provided a form of rest for value. Value could pause without decaying. This pause did not halt activity elsewhere. It allowed separation. Separation between what must move and what must remain. Gold belonged to what must remain. Remaining does not imply rigidity. Gold could be reshaped. It could change form, but it did not change nature. This distinction mattered. Form adapted. Nature persisted. Human systems often confuse the two. They attempt to preserve form and change nature. Gold preserved nature and allowed form to shift. This flexibility without loss allowed it to survive changing contexts. As centuries passed, gold's role became increasingly abstract without becoming symbolic. It was not an idea. It was not a belief. It was a reference. References do not persuade. They orient. Gold oriented perception around endurance. Endurance does not promise comfort. It promises continuity. Continuity is enough. As this long movement continues, gold remains in its familiar posture. It does not seek relevance. It does not resist neglect. It does not demand recognition. It waits. And in waiting, it continues to accompany human systems as they grow more complex, more distant from their origins, and more dependent on trust. Trust will always need something beneath it. Something that does not argue. Something that does not hurry. Something that remains recognizable when explanations fail. Gold remains, still, unchanged, waiting for the next shift, the next transition, the next moment when something steady becomes visible again. Time continues, and with it, the quiet persistence of what does not change. Human systems refine themselves. They learn from past strain. They design around previous failures. Each refinement adds layers meant to protect against uncertainty. These layers are often effective, sometimes for generations. Gold does not participate in refinement. It remains unrefined by design. This absence of refinement is not neglect. It is compatibility with time. Refined systems require maintenance. They must be understood, updated, defended, and transmitted accurately. When transmission falters, refinement becomes fragility. Gold did not require transmission. A person did not need to know its history to recognize it. They did not need to understand its role to accept it. They needed only to see and test it. This simplicity made gold resilient to forgetting. Forgetting is inevitable. Languages disappear. Knowledge fragments. Practices fade. Gold survived forgetting. It survived because it did not rely on shared explanation. It relied on recognition. Recognition is immediate. It does not depend on education. It depends on perception. Gold's perception did not change. It looked the same. It felt the same. It behaved the same. This consistency allowed it to re-enter awareness even after long absence. Absence did not erase it. It waited. As human systems became more distant from physical reality, the idea of something unchanging grew more abstract. People lived surrounded by processes rather than objects. Outcomes arrived without visible cause. Value appeared without visible substance. This distance altered intuition. Intuition shaped in physical environments struggled to adapt to abstract ones. Gold remained physical. It did not become abstract. It stayed heavy. This heaviness mattered. Heaviness anchors perception. It resists illusion. Gold could not be imagined into existence. It had to be found, extracted, carried. This requirement grounded value in effort, even when effort elsewhere became invisible. Gold reminded people, quietly, that value once required contact with the earth. This reminder did not moralize. It contextualized. Context does not instruct behavior. It frames it. Gold framed value as something that emerged from limitation. Limitation is uncomfortable. It contradicts ambition. Gold did not oppose ambition. It existed outside it. This outside position allowed gold to survive cycles of expansion that consumed more integrated systems. Integration increases efficiency. It also increases vulnerability. Gold remained less integrated. Less integrated systems fail less dramatically. They fail quietly or not at all. Gold failed rarely. This rarity reinforced trust. Trust built slowly is difficult to displace. Gold's trust was built over centuries, not by persuasion, by survival. Survival is a form of evidence. Evidence accumulates weight. Gold accumulated weight in both senses. As time continued, gold's role became increasingly implicit in how people understood loss. Loss is inevitable. What matters is whether loss is temporary or permanent. Gold blurred this distinction. A person could lose gold and it would still exist. Loss did not destroy it. Destruction of value feels different from transfer of value. Gold preserved value through transfer even when ownership changed. This preservation reduced the finality of loss. Not emotionally, structurally. It allowed systems to absorb loss without erasing value entirely. This absorption mattered in long histories marked by disruption. Gold did not prevent suffering. It prevented complete erasure. Erasure severs continuity. Gold maintained continuity even when experience was fragmented. As generations passed, gold became part of the quiet inheritance of restraint. Restraint is not imposed. It is learned. People learned that some things were not meant to be consumed quickly. Gold was one of those things. This learning did not require instruction. It was observed. Observation is more persuasive than argument. Gold persuaded without speaking. As the distance between effort and reward increased in human systems, this restraint became more important. Without restraint, systems accelerate toward instability. Gold slowed nothing directly. It slowed expectation. Slowed expectation allows recalibration. Recalibration does not happen in motion. It happens in pause. Gold offered pause. Pause is not inactivity. It is preparation. Gold prepared societies for transition by existing through it. As transitions occurred, gold did not define the next form. It allowed the next form to emerge without starting from nothing. Starting from nothing is destabilizing. Gold prevented nothingness. It carried something forward. That something was not a plan. It was continuity. Continuity is not enough to guarantee success. It is enough to allow recovery. Recovery requires recognition. Gold was recognized. As long as recognition persisted, gold's role persisted. Recognition does not require consensus. It requires familiarity. Gold remained familiar across time. This familiarity did not fade with distance. It deepened. As this episode continues, gold remains in its enduring posture. Not instructing, not guiding, not promising, remaining, present through change, recognizable through silence, unchanged through acceleration, waiting, as it always has. Time continues, and with it, the quiet separation between what endures and what must be renewed. Human systems depend on renewal. They must be updated, reaffirmed, repaired. Without renewal, they decay. This decay is not moral failure. It is entropy. Gold did not require renewal. It did not need to be refreshed, revalidated, or reintroduced. It did not expire. It did not age out of relevance. This absence of renewal shaped its role in a way few things share. Most systems ask something of the future: maintenance, agreement, participation. Gold asked nothing. It did not require belief in tomorrow. It existed regardless of tomorrow. This independence from expectation made gold suitable for moments when expectation weakened. When people no longer trusted continuity, gold did not need to be trusted. It only needed to be recognized. Recognition is a lower requirement than trust. Trust involves anticipation. Recognition involves acknowledgement. Gold survived by requiring acknowledgement rather than anticipation. As societies moved further from direct experience of scarcity, abstraction softened the perception of limits. Systems grew confident. Coordination became sophisticated. Outcomes became predictable. For long periods, this worked. Gold did not interrupt these periods. It remained silent. Silence allowed confidence to grow without resistance. When resistance appears too early, it is dismissed. Gold did not resist. It waited. Waiting is a form of alignment with time rather than with circumstance. Circumstances change quickly. Time changes slowly. Gold aligned with time. As generations passed, people became increasingly skilled at managing symbols. They learned to live within representations. Many never touched the underlying substances those representations implied. Gold remained one of the few substances whose implication could not be fully abstracted. It insisted on presence. Even when unseen, it was known to exist somewhere. That knowledge carried weight. Weight is not influence. It is gravity. Gold exerted gravity on expectation. Expectation bent around it. People assumed that somewhere beneath the system, something solid remained. This assumption allowed them to tolerate uncertainty longer. Tolerance of uncertainty is essential in complex systems. Without tolerance, systems fracture under stress. Gold increased tolerance by existing beyond stress, not solving it, absorbing it. Absorption does not remove pressure. It redistributes it across time. Gold redistributed pressure by delaying finality. Finality is heavy. Gold lightened finality by making loss reversible in form, if not in experience. This distinction matters. Experience may be irreversible. Value need not be. Gold preserved value through irreversible events. This preservation did not undo harm. It allowed continuity afterward. Continuity afterward is how history proceeds. No system avoids harm entirely. What matters is whether something remains to build upon. Gold ensured something remained. Not everywhere, not equally, but often enough to shape behavior. As human systems grew more confident in their own designs, gold became less visible. Visibility is not necessity. Many necessities are invisible. Gold became one of them. Invisible necessities shape behavior indirectly. They influence what people assume, not what they discuss. Assumptions guide action more reliably than debate. Gold lived inside assumption. People assumed it would matter later. That assumption shaped preservation. Preservation shaped survival. Survival shaped memory. Memory reinforced assumption. This cycle continued quietly. Cycles that do not demand attention endure longest. Gold's cycle demanded none. As time moved forward, gold remained unchanged not because change was impossible, but because change was unnecessary. Unnecessary change introduces risk. Gold avoided risk by avoiding intention. It had no intention. It simply was. Being is enough when aligned with long-term human patterns. Gold aligned with the pattern of uncertainty, followed by reconstruction. Reconstruction requires material. Gold survived long enough to become that material. Not always used, always possible. Possibility is enough. As long as people believe something can serve when needed, they behave differently. Gold shaped behavior through possibility rather than action. This shaping did not require instruction. It did not require enforcement. It did not require consensus. It required only that gold remained recognizable. Recognition persisted. And so, as the next movement of history continues to unfold, gold remains in its familiar role. Not ladings, not following, not resisting, present, unchanged, available, waiting as it always has, for the moment when something that does not change becomes visible again. Time continues, and with it, the quiet tension between permanence and invention. Human societies invent because they must. They respond to pressure, to scarcity, to ambition, to fear. Invention brings relief, efficiency, reach. It also introduces dependency. Each invention requires trust in its continued function. Gold did not require function. It did not need to work. It needed only to exist. This difference placed gold outside the cycle of improvement and obsolescence. Most human creations are evaluated by how well they perform. Gold was evaluated by how little it changed. Change is often framed as progress. Stability is often framed as stagnation. Over long periods, the distinction blurs. Too much change erodes orientation. Too much stability prevents adaptation. Gold did not compete with invention. It coexisted with it. It allowed invention to rise and fall without erasing a reference to continuity. This coexistence shaped long-term confidence. People were willing to experiment because something familiar remained in the background. Risk felt tolerable because loss did not always feel final. Gold did not guarantee recovery. It allowed the idea of recovery to persist. Ideas shape behavior. The idea that something survives failure changes how people approach uncertainty. Gold embodied that idea without speaking it. As human systems became more abstract, the number of things that could not be directly verified increased. People trusted outcomes they could not observe, calculations they could not reproduce, mechanisms they could not explain. Trust expanded. Gold did not shrink trust. It grounded it. Grounding does not oppose trust. It gives it somewhere to rest. Without rest, trust becomes strain. Strain accumulates. Gold absorbed strain by existing beyond daily reliance. It did not carry the weight of constant use. It carried the weight of time. Time is heavier than any transaction. Gold bore time without changing. This endurance shaped how people thought about legacy. Legacy is not about recognition. It is about continuity beyond one's own participation. Gold allowed continuity without dependence on memory. A person did not need to be remembered for their gold to matter. This anonymity changed the relationship between effort and recognition. Effort could be preserved without personal story. Gold removed identity from value. This removal reduced conflict. Conflict often arises from claims of origin. Gold did not record origin. It erased it. Erasure can be destructive. In this case, it was stabilizing. By removing origin, gold allowed exchange without reopening old disputes. It allowed value to move forward without carrying history's weight. History is heavy. Gold was heavy enough already. As societies accumulated history, the need for something that could move without carrying it became more apparent. Gold moved without memory. It did not remember who held it before. It did not care. This indifference allowed it to be reused endlessly. Reuse is essential in long systems. Things that cannot be reused are consumed. Gold was not consumed. It circulated or rested. Circulation did not degrade it. Rest did not decay it. This dual capacity allowed it to serve many roles without losing itself. As human systems continued to scale, gold's inability to scale at the same pace became a defining feature. It could not expand to match ambition. It could not multiply to meet expectation. These limitations frustrated some and reassured others. Frustration and reassurance often coexist. Gold provoked both without changing. This dual response reinforced its neutrality. It did not align with desire. It did not align with fear. It remained indifferent. Indifference is often mistaken for weakness. In long histories, indifference can be strength. Gold did not react to pressure. It survived it. Survival through pressure accumulates credibility. Credibility earned through survival is difficult to replace. As this next episode continues, gold remains exactly where it has always been. Not as a solution to modern complexity, not as an answer to future uncertainty, but as a reference that has accompanied humanity through many forms of both. It does not promise relevance. It does not predict return. It does not signal collapse or renewal. It simply remains unchanged, recognizable, available, waiting not for a specific moment, but for the recurring human need to orient value against something that does not move. That need has appeared before. It will appear again. Gold does not need to anticipate it. It has already waited long enough. Time continues, and with it, the quiet rhythm of human repetition. Civilizations believe themselves unique, yet many of their movements echo earlier ones. Tools change. Language changes. Scale changes. The underlying responses to uncertainty remain familiar. Gold has accompanied these responses without intervening in them. It has never directed human behavior. It has reflected it. When confidence is high, gold becomes distant. When confidence thins, gold becomes noticeable again. This movement does not require intention. It follows attention. Attention shifts when systems feel strained. Gold waits for attention without calling for it. This waiting has shaped its place in history more than any dramatic moment. There was no single turning point when gold became essential. There were countless small moments when it was simply chosen again. Choice repeated becomes habit. Habit repeated becomes tradition. Tradition repeated becomes assumption. Gold moved through all three stages. Assumption is powerful because it is rarely questioned. People question ideas. They question rules. They question authority. They rarely question what feels given. Gold came to feel given, not given by decree, given by time. Time grants legitimacy differently than power does. Power asserts. Time accumulates. Gold accumulated legitimacy slowly, without argument. As systems became more capable of sustaining themselves for long periods, gold's role did not vanish. It shifted further into the background. Background elements are often the last to fail. They are not stressed by daily demand. Gold avoided daily demand by becoming reserved. Reservation preserved it. Preservation reinforced trust. Trust reinforced reservation. This cycle continued quietly. As abstraction increased, people relied more on coordination than on substance. They trusted systems that had worked for generations. This trust was often justified. Gold did not undermine it. It existed alongside it. Side by side, not competing. This coexistence allowed gradual change without rupture. When systems evolved smoothly, gold stayed still. When systems fractured, gold bridged gaps. Bridges are most useful when they are not noticed until needed. Gold functioned as a bridge between past and future without announcing itself. Announcement invites scrutiny. Scrutiny invites contest. Gold avoided contest by remaining silent. Silence is not absence. It is restraint. Restraint allowed gold to remain acceptable across conflict. It was taken by victors and preserved by the defeated. It passed through hands without adopting their cause. Cause divides. Gold did not divide. It remained neutral. Neutrality is often criticized as indifference. In long histories, neutrality allows survival. Gold survived many causes. As people lived longer within stable systems, memory of earlier instability faded. Confidence replaced caution. Abstraction felt natural. Gold remained quiet during these periods. Quietness prevented resistance. Resistance provokes reaction. Gold did not provoke. It waited. Waiting is not passive when time is long. Over long spans, waiting becomes positioning. Gold positioned itself where it could not be displaced easily. Not by being central, by being foundational. Foundations are not visible in daily life. They are noticed when stress appears. Gold was noticed then. As this episode continues forward, gold remains what it has always been in human history. Not a driver, not a destination, not a doctrine, a reference, a reminder without words, a constant presence that does not insist on relevance. It remains through confidence and doubt alike, through innovation and collapse, through memory and forgetting. Still recognizable, still unchanged, still waiting. And as long as human systems continue to evolve faster than human nature, something that does not change will continue to find its place beside them. Gold remains there, quiet, patient, enduring. Time continues, and with it, the slow reshaping of how people understand permanence. Permanence is rarely noticed when it is present. It is felt most clearly when it is threatened. Human systems learn this lesson repeatedly. Stability fades gradually, then suddenly becomes visible in its absence. Gold has always existed in that space between the gradual and the sudden. It did not prevent change. It softened the shock of it. When familiar structures weakened, people searched for something that did not require explanation, something that did not ask them to understand why it still worked. Gold did not work in the way systems work. It did not perform. It remained. Remaining requires no coordination. It does not depend on agreement. It does not collapse when communication fails. This made gold suitable for moments when coordination fractured, not because gold repaired coordination, because it allowed value to exist without it. As societies layered trust upon trust, assumption upon assumption, they rarely stopped to consider how much of that trust depended on continuity. Continuity is fragile. It relies on memory, agreement, and shared belief. Gold relied on none of these. It relied on recognition. Recognition is immediate. A person does not need to believe in gold to recognize it. They do not need to agree with its history. They do not need to accept its symbolism. They need only to see it, weigh it, and know that others will do the same. This knowledge did not come from instruction. It came from observation, repeated across time. Observation becomes expectation. Expectation becomes habit. Habit becomes culture. Gold entered culture without demanding language. Language evolves. Gold did not. As human societies became increasingly confident in their capacity to design systems that could manage complexity indefinitely, gold's stillness appeared less relevant. Relevance is a short-term judgment. Endurance is a long-term one. Gold traded relevance for endurance. This trade allowed it to persist quietly while other things competed for attention. Attention moves. What remains when attention leaves often determines what survives. Gold survived because it did not require attention. It could be forgotten and still remain. Forgetting did not erase it. It waited. Waiting through neglect is difficult for most things. Neglect breaks systems that require participation. Gold required none. This quality allowed it to pass through eras of confidence and eras of doubt unchanged. As abstraction deepened, people became accustomed to value that could appear and disappear without physical trace. This ease created comfort, but it also created distance from limitation. Distance from limitation alters behavior. Gold reintroduced limitation simply by existing, not as a rule, as a fact. Facts do not argue. They persist. Gold persisted. This persistence shaped long-term perception more than short-term experience. People did not feel gold's influence every day. They felt it when something else stopped working. At those moments, gold did not arrive dramatically. It was already there. This prior presence mattered. Something that arrives in crisis feels uncertain. Something that has always been present feels familiar. Gold felt familiar even when rarely seen. Familiarity reduces fear. Fear destabilizes systems faster than scarcity. Gold reduced fear by being recognizable. Not comforting, recognizable. Recognition allows orientation. Orientation allows action. Gold allowed action when orientation was difficult. As human history continued, gold did not move closer to the center of daily life. It moved further away. Paradoxically, this distance deepened its significance. What is close becomes ordinary. What is distant becomes foundational. Gold became foundational. Foundations are not interacted with daily. They are relied upon silently. Gold reached this role without being designed for it. Design aims for efficiency. Gold achieved resilience. Resilience is rarely designed successfully. It emerges from alignment with long-term patterns. Gold aligned with the pattern of uncertainty, followed by rebuilding. Again and again. As this story continues into its next movement, gold remains unchanged. Not preparing, not predicting, not reacting, remaining. Its role is not to shape the future. It never was. Its role is to remain legible across it. Legibility across time is rare. Gold achieved it by refusing to change. And so, as human systems continue their endless work of invention, refinement, and revision, gold continues its quieter work. Being there, waiting, not for a specific moment, but for the recurring human need to recognize something that does not move when everything else does. Time continues, and with it, the steady narrowing of what can be relied upon without explanation. As human systems become more intricate, fewer things remain simple enough to be trusted instinctively. Trust migrates from understanding to expectation. Expectation migrates from experience to assumption. Gold does not migrate. It stays where it has always been. This stillness becomes more noticeable as motion accelerates elsewhere. When everything around changes form, speed, and meaning, what does not change acquires a different weight. Not a louder weight, a deeper one. Depth is rarely visible. It is felt when surface structures fail to carry load. Gold carried load quietly. It did not carry the daily load of exchange. It carried the long load of continuity. Continuity is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It does not require validation. It simply persists. Human beings often mistake persistence for inevitability, but persistence is not guaranteed. It is earned through alignment with conditions that repeat. Gold aligned with repetition. Repeated uncertainty. Repeated rebuilding. Repeated forgetting. Repeated return. Each cycle reinforced the next. Not through planning, through memory encoded in behavior. People did not remember the first time gold mattered. They remembered that it had mattered before. That was enough. Enough to store it. Enough to protect it. Enough to hesitate before discarding it. These small hesitations accumulated into endurance. Endurance is built from restraint more than from strength. Gold encouraged restraint by being inconvenient to use carelessly. It was heavy. It was slow. It demanded intention. Intention slows action. Slowed action reduces error. Gold reduced error not by guiding behavior, but by resisting haste. As societies moved faster, this resistance became more pronounced by contrast. Gold did not resist change. It resisted urgency. Urgency compresses judgment. Gold expanded time, not by extending deadlines, by existing beyond them. When something exists beyond deadlines, it reframes importance. It suggests that not everything must be decided now. This suggestion did not appear as advice. It appeared as availability. Gold would still be there later. Later is a powerful concept. Later allows reconsideration. Later allows survival beyond immediate outcomes. Gold embodied later. Not tomorrow, not next year. Later beyond memories. This temporal reach changed how people understood loss. Loss in systems often feels final because systems move on. Records close. Processes reset. Gold did not move on. A loss involving gold was a transfer, not an erasure. Erasure removes continuity. Transfer preserves it. Preservation does not comfort. It stabilizes. Gold stabilized by ensuring that value could move through disruption without dissolving. This did not make disruption gentle. It made recovery possible. Possibility matters more than certainty in long histories. Certainty fades quickly. Possibility persists. Gold preserved possibility by remaining intact across change. As human systems layered confidence upon confidence, gold's role did not diminish. It became quieter. Quiet roles are often misunderstood as obsolete. Obsolescence implies replacement. Gold was not replaced. It was sidelined. Being sidelined reduced where? Reduced where preserved form. Preserved form preserved recognition. Recognition preserved relevance. This indirect path allowed gold to survive, while more central systems exhausted themselves. Central systems absorb pressure. Peripheral constants absorb time. Gold absorbed time. Time is heavier than pressure. Most systems break under time, not stress. Gold did not. As centuries continued, gold became increasingly associated with what outlasted explanation. Explanations are temporary. They suit a moment. Gold suited duration. Duration does not need explanation. It reveals itself through persistence. Gold revealed itself slowly, repeatedly, without argument. This manner of revelation built a trust that did not depend on agreement. People did not need to agree about why gold mattered. They needed only to expect that others would recognize it. Expectation coordinated behavior without instruction. Coordination without instruction is rare. Gold achieved it by being familiar enough to need no introduction. As the story continues, gold remains in the same posture. It does not seek relevance. It does not resist neglect. It does not demand belief. It remains legible. Legibility across time is the deepest form of communication. Gold communicated without speaking. It said only one thing repeatedly across generations: I am still here. And because it was, people continued to act as if it would be. That action sustained its role, not through ideology, through habit. Habit is stronger than belief. Belief changes. Habit persists. Gold became habit embedded in culture, memory, and expectation. Not loudly, quietly, patiently, unchanged, waiting. Time continues, and with it, the quiet narrowing of certainty. Human systems grow more capable, yet also more dependent on assumptions that few can fully examine. Participation becomes abstract. Responsibility disperses. Outcomes arrive through layers of process rather than direct action. Gold does not pass through layers. It remains singular. Singularity matters when everything else multiplies. In systems built on multiplication, replication, and scale, a single unchanging reference becomes noticeable by contrast. Not immediately, gradually. Gold does not multiply. It accumulates. Accumulation is slow. Slowness frustrates ambition. It reassures continuity. Gold reassured by refusing to hurry. This refusal did not stop human systems from accelerating. It existed beside that acceleration, offering a silent contrast. Contrast sharpens perception. Without contrast, movement feels normal no matter how extreme. Gold provided contrast across time. It allowed people, eventually, to sense that something had moved far from earlier conditions. Sensing does not require analysis. It arises as unease, hesitation, reconsideration. Gold did not explain unease. It made unease intelligible. By remaining unchanged, gold showed that change elsewhere had occurred. This role did not depend on gold being used. It depended on gold being remembered. Memory is selective. It retains what survives. Gold survived. Survival anchored memory. Memory anchored expectation. Expectation shaped behavior. This chain operated quietly, without instruction. As systems became increasingly abstract, the number of things that could not be directly verified grew. People relied on trust that others were following rules they could not observe. Gold remained verifiable. Verification is grounding even when not exercised. Knowing that something can be checked reduces anxiety. Gold carried this possibility. Possibility calms. Calm allows systems to function longer. Gold contributed to calm without intervening. It did not solve problems. It softened edges. Edges are where systems fail. Softened edges reduce fracture. Gold reduced fracture by existing beyond immediate consequence. Immediate consequence drives urgency. Urgency narrows judgment. Gold widened judgment by existing outside urgency. This widening did not produce wisdom. It produced patience. Patience is not often celebrated. In long histories, it is essential. Gold embodied patience by being patient. It did not react. It did not respond. It did not adapt. It waited. Waiting allowed time to pass without loss of form. Form preservation mattered. When form dissolves, recognition fails. Gold preserved form. This preservation allowed recognition across eras that could not speak to one another. Recognition bridged silence. Silence often marks transitions between systems. Gold carried value through silence, not loudly, without records, without explanation. It simply remained. As human systems layered redundancy upon redundancy, gold remained redundant in the best sense. Not necessary for daily function, necessary for continuity. Redundancy is often seen as inefficiency. In long systems, redundancy is survival. Gold was redundant to daily life. It was essential to long life. This paradox allowed it to endure without pressure. Pressure breaks things. Gold avoided pressure by remaining peripheral. Peripheral does not mean insignificant. It means less stressed. Less stress preserves integrity. Integrity preserves recognition. Recognition preserves role. This chain sustained itself. As time moved forward, gold did not become more visible. It became more assumed. Assumption is deeper than visibility. Visible things can be challenged. Assumed things shape behavior invisibly. Gold shaped behavior invisibly. People planned as if something could remain. They acted as if value could be preserved. They tolerated uncertainty, knowing something familiar existed beneath change. This tolerance allowed societies to risk innovation without total loss. Gold did not enable innovation. It enabled recovery. Recovery is rarely glamorous. It is necessary. As long as recovery remains possible, systems continue to attempt change. Gold kept recovery imaginable. Imagination shapes endurance. Gold did not inspire imagination. It stabilized it. Stabilized imagination does not panic. It adapts. As this long narrative continues, gold remains where it has always been. Not offering guidance, not offering solutions, not offering certainty, offering presence. Presence that does not demand attention. Presence that does not change. Presence that waits through cycles of confidence and doubt alike. Gold remains. Still, unchanged, available, waiting not for a particular moment, but for the recurring human recognition that something enduring has value simply because it endures. Time continues, and with it, the quiet thinning of what feels dependable without effort. Human life becomes increasingly mediated. People interact with outcomes more than processes. Results arrive without visible cause. Trust rests on systems that operate beyond direct perception. Gold does not operate beyond perception. It remains perceptible. Even when unseen, it is imaginable in physical terms. Weight, density, form, these qualities do not require explanation. They belong to the senses. Senses anchor understanding when explanation becomes abstract. Gold anchored value in the sensory world long after most value had moved elsewhere. This anchoring did not slow abstraction. It made abstraction tolerable. When people believe that something tangible exists beneath symbols, they are more willing to engage with symbols. They extend trust more easily. They accept complexity with less resistance. Gold supported this acceptance indirectly, not by being used, by being known to exist. Existence shapes expectation. Expectation shapes behavior. Gold shaped behavior by shaping expectation. Expectation that value was not entirely imaginary. Expectation that limits existed somewhere, even if rarely encountered. Limits influence restraint. Restraint reduces instability. Gold reduced instability without acting. As systems became increasingly interdependent, failure in one place could ripple outward quickly. Cascades became possible where once they were rare. Gold did not prevent cascades. It allowed something to remain outside them. Outside positions matter when systems cascade. They provide places where value does not dissolve immediately. Gold provided that place. Not everywhere, not equally, but enough to matter. As time continued, gold's role became increasingly associated with what remained when explanation failed. When systems required constant explanation to maintain confidence, fatigue followed. Fatigue weakens trust. Gold did not require explanation. It required recognition. Recognition does not fatigue. It is immediate. Immediate recognition stabilizes when understanding lags. Gold stabilized understanding gaps by existing beyond them. This existence was not active. It was passive. Passive does not mean weak. In long durations, passivity can be resilient. Gold's resilience came from not being asked to do too much. It did not carry daily transaction. It carried long memories. Memory is heavy. Gold carried it without complaint. As human history accumulated layers of complexity, gold accumulated layers of silence. Silence is not emptiness. It is absence of contradiction. Gold did not contradict itself. It behaved consistently across contexts. Consistency builds trust without persuasion. Persuasion is effortful. Gold required no effort to trust once recognized. This low effort made it accessible across cultures and eras. Accessibility without adaptation is rare. Gold achieved it by being simple. Simple does not mean shallow. It means stable. Stability allows repetition. Repetition creates familiarity. Familiarity creates trust. Trust creates endurance. Gold moved through this sequence naturally. Not once, repeatedly. As generations passed, gold became less a topic of discussion and more a condition of assumption. Assumptions are powerful precisely because they are not examined. Gold did not benefit from examination. It benefited from neglect. Neglect preserved it. When attention moved elsewhere, gold avoided wear. Wear destroys. Gold avoided destruction by avoiding use. This paradox defined its later role. By being less used, it became more enduring. By being more enduring, it became more trusted. Trust does not require visibility. It requires continuity. Gold provided continuity. As long as continuity mattered to human societies, something that embodied it would matter too. Gold happened to be that thing, not by design, by alignment. Alignment with time, alignment with human memory, alignment with uncertainty. Gold aligned with the fact that systems change faster than people forget. Forgetfulness erases explanation. Gold did not rely on explanation. It relied on recognition. Recognition survived forgetting. As this long narrative moves forward, gold remains unchanged in posture. It does not adapt to speed. It does not compete with abstraction. It does not resist innovation. It waits. Waiting is not anticipation. It is acceptance of time. Gold accepted time by not reacting to it. That acceptance carried it forward through centuries of change. Still present, still recognizable, still unchanged, waiting quietly as it always has, for the moment when something stable becomes visible again, simply because everything else has moved. Time continues, and with it, the quiet persistence of what does not ask to be noticed. Gold remains where it has been for a very long time. Not at the center of daily life, not at the edge of disappearance, simply present. Across generations, systems have grown more capable, more abstract, more confident in their own design. They have learned to move faster, to coordinate wider, to imagine value without touching it. Gold did not follow. It did not need to. Its role was never to keep pace with invention, but to remain legible when invention moved on. Gold did not compete with symbols. It did not argue with systems. It did not resist change. It waited. Waiting gave it a different kind of relevance. When attention shifted away, gold endured. When explanation failed, gold remained recognizable. When continuity felt uncertain, gold required no reassurance. It did not promise safety. It did not guarantee outcomes. It simply stayed the same. That sameness carried memory forward without language. It carried value forward without instruction. It carried continuity forward without design. Gold did not teach societies how to behave. It reflected how societies behaved over time. What was kept, repeated, protected, and passed on revealed what mattered most when certainty thinned. Gold mattered because it survived being unnecessary. It did not rely on daily use. It did not rely on belief. It did not rely on explanation. It relied on recognition. Recognition endured. And so gold remained, through confidence and doubt, through expansion and pause, through systems that refined themselves in systems that dissolved. Not leading history, not directing it, standing quietly beside it. This episode does not end with a conclusion, because gold itself never concluded anything. It did not close chapters. It did not resolve questions. It remained available between chapters, as a pause, as a reference, as something unchanged in a world that rarely is. And here the story rests again, not finished,